You are listening to the Digital Parent Podcast with your host, Ced Lewis.
Hey parents, welcome to another episode of the Digital Parent Podcast. On today's episode, we have Julie Fisher, who's the founder of the outstanding program called the Social U, which is a proprietary technology that allows parents to scan every post their child has uploaded to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, those types of sites. And that's outstanding from the simple fact that if your child is applying for colleges or even applying for a job, you would know very quickly what other people can see in regards to the posts that are being put up. And the thing that I love about the Social U is that it provides what Julie calls a social GPA, which is a score to tell you how well your child is doing in regards to the content that's been uploaded. So if they're uploading a bunch of bad content, low score, a lot of great content, high score. So I can't wait for you guys to listen to this podcast. We're going to jump straight into it, the conversation between Julie and I about her company, the Social U. Hey, Julie, welcome to the Digital Parent Podcast. We're so happy to have you on the show today.
I'm thrilled to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Hey, Julie, we learned about, Social U and such a phenomenal website. I want to jump right into it. Tell us about Social U and how did you come up with that concept, that idea?
Well, I guess simply put, the Social U is basically a tool that we've created to help students of any age manage their online reputation. And we've created our own proprietary technology which scans and scores student social media profiles to help them ensure that what they've posted online in the past doesn't negatively impact their future, like with getting into college, getting a scholarship, getting an internship, or a job. And essentially, I came up with the idea through my work with a nonprofit that's been around the Detroit area for the past 30 years or so that's dedicated to preventing risky behavior in children and teens. And over the last maybe 6 years, I saw a tremendous interest in the programming that we did focusing on social media and online reputation management. What I heard from all of my presentations at schools was that both parents and students really understood the need to do something about social media, but they didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to do it. And there weren't really any quality tools that were available out there that were expressly directed towards parents and students, especially those underage students. So as I was a high school teacher in a previous life for many years, I knew that everybody understood the kind of academic grading system. It made sense. Everybody knows what an A means versus what a D means. So when I created the algorithm for the Social U, I created it to export into sort of a social media report card with a social GPA. So instead of getting like a 57 for your social profiles, you get a 3.8, which seems to make more sense to people than just sort of an arbitrary number.
It's outstanding. So, like when a kid gets a very low GPA, do you see parents freaking out over that low score?
I see kids laughing most of the time. And yes, parents often freak out, especially those very ultra-competitive parents who are the helicopter types who are so crazy about their kids' grades, so they look at this as another grade. But one of the great things about the Social U is it gives you, both parents and students, a way to understand how that student looks online to others. So just how you would check your credit report scores before you go apply for a loan, because you want to know how you look before you apply, we think you ought to know how you look before you apply to college or for a job online.
Now, is there any way of changing the GPA? So, we go through the process, we take the test, we get like a low GPA. After we clean up everything, can we retake it to get like a higher grade?
Absolutely. And that's really what it's designed to do. So without doing anything, without doing any cleanup, we recommend that you run your social GPA. And after you get your social GPA, what you're going to find are all of the posts that we flagged as potentially problematic for you in the future. And it's those posts that go into downgrading the social GPA. From there, you can look at every single one of those posts within our program without going back to Twitter or back to Instagram to find that particular post. We'll point it out to you, we'll pull it up for you, and tell you why we flagged it and what we think you maybe ought to do with it. But at the end of the day, it's up to the individual user to decide if they're okay leaving that online or they're not okay leaving it online. And if you edit or delete, you just rerun your report and it will update your social GPA.
So let me ask you this question, Julie. Let's say, somebody runs a report and there's just like a ton of stuff across Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And, as parents, we can be lazy sometimes. Do you provide like a service that will just take care of this stuff for a family?
Well, we do have a concierge service where we will work one-on-one outside of the technology with students and their families. But we've designed the software to really empower the student, because you might be okay with a post with you holding a gun in it because you're an NRA supporter, but somebody else might not be. So for us to go in and just clean it up doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because there is so much online that's subjective.
And that makes sense. So if you get a good social GPA, is this something where kids can market their GPA? Like, for example, you know how people utilize like clout and clout scores with Twitter. Can they put that on like a resume or application to say, hey, check out my, social GPA, to kind of show that they're really good digital citizens?
Absolutely. So on the Common Application, which is used by so many universities now, there is an additional information section where you can include your social GPA. You can include basically anything you want there. So even if you had a YouTube site or a Tumblr site that you wanted to highlight that might not be anywhere else, might not appear anywhere else on your application, you could put that address in there. But you can absolutely put your social GPA there. And just like you'd put your LinkedIn profile address on your resume, underneath that you can also list your social GPA.
So when they list their social GPA, is there like a link to take them to your site so like an admission officer or whatever can actually see the results?
So the admissions officer couldn't see the results because your social GPA is your private social GPA. If you set it up to make it public, that's kind of a different thing.
Okay.
But it's really a tool designed for students and their families to use to help them in the background as opposed to in the foreground. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't share your social GPA, because if you have a 4.0, why not share it? That's
right. So the next question would be, there are some other companies out there who are trying to help students audit their social profile. What's kind of like the difference with you guys at Social U that makes you a little bit more unique?
Well, there are a couple of differences. There are a handful of companies that work with students, but we're the only one that has a technology platform specifically designed for students. In other cases, what other companies are doing that work with students is they have a person actually sitting behind a computer screen and going through the student's social media. It takes longer. It's much more expensive to do it that way. Another difference between us and maybe like a Reputation.com company is that we are designed with the student in mind specifically. So even having a cigarette in the picture or one of those red Solo cups, that's a flag for an underage student in a way that it wouldn't necessarily be for somebody who is over 21, just in the job market.
So what would be the cost comparison between somebody signing up for Social U compared to, like you're saying, these other companies where you have to hire somebody to sit with you through a Skype call to kind of monitor your social media?
Well, number one, there's a time consideration, and there's also a price consideration.
Right.
Our service is free.
Wow.
So you don't have to pay to get that information. If you want the extra added individual attention, obviously we charge for that.
Right.
But because of the technology that we've created, the service is free. And it's super quick. So you might have 5,000 Twitter posts and 1,800 Facebook posts and 3,000 Instagram photos and a Tumblr you've been keeping up for the past 4 years. We're able to scan all of that very quickly, usually within an hour. Again, sometimes depending on the number of images we have to scan, it could take up to 24 hours, but usually it's done within 15 minutes to an hour. In some cases, it's even done, in 5 or 10 minutes, depending on how thick your portfolio is. So it's really quick.
That's awesome, Julie. So let me ask you about another population. It seems like this will also be really great for like college students that are getting ready to go into the workforce, or they're in the process of applying for jobs. They can quickly use this software to really, scan all their social media and audit it before they send in applications.
As the parent myself of 2 college students, I can tell you that often what they're posting in college is a whole lot worse than what they posted in high school, as they have access to all of those parties on campus.
Right.
And we know that 92% of recruiters use social media as a recruiting tool. LinkedIn is the most commonly checked site, but that's followed by Facebook and then Twitter. And so for college students especially, because there are so many examples out there of people who didn't get a job or who lost a job because of what they posted online, it's vital that they take the time and make sure that their social media profiles are in good shape all during the application process, whether it's for a real job or an internship or whatever they're going after.
Now, another question is, when it comes to apps like, Kik, Snapchat, which are not necessarily like social media sites, does the software still work on like mobile apps?
So right now we scan Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr. We don't currently scan Snapchat because of the nature of the app, because the Snap stories only last 24 hours and the individual snaps much less time. But we do often find those Snapchat images that get kids in trouble, because they often get them in trouble because they're screenshotted and then posted on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. So we'll catch them there, but we don't go into Snapchat, because you scan it today and within 24 hours, whatever you posted is gone from the site.
That makes sense. So let me ask you a follow-up question to that. So if somebody like posts a snap, right, that somebody screenshot it and post it on the internet, will the software still find it, or is the software only looking for pictures that are based upon the user's username and profile?
We are able to scan Google. We're not, the whole internet. We're not doing that currently. So it will find it, as I said, if it is posted somewhere in their Twitter, their Facebook, their Instagram, or their Tumblr. Those are the sites we're looking at right now.
That's great. So if somebody's like, is out for revenge and they're screenshotting people's pictures and putting them up on the internet, Social U will kind of find that information and flag it for you.
So if you're tagged in something, if your name is tagged in it and you've got your tagging, if you haven't set up privacy controls with tagging to not allow you to be tagged, if it's tagged and so it appears on your timeline or your page, we'll find it. Yeah.
All right. Now, another question, Julie, we're doing all this research and creating your own product. Have you talked to admission officers a lot? And, what are they really looking for when it comes to these social media accounts like Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr and Facebook?
We have talked to admissions officers. We are very fortunate to count Ted Spencer, who recently retired as the head of admissions for the University of Michigan, on our advisory team. And he's hooked us up with a lot of terrific people. But we also did a survey of hundreds of college admissions officers last summer. And so what we found out through that survey was nearly 50% of the admissions officers we surveyed said either they or somebody in their office has checked out an applicant online at one time or another. And that doesn't mean that admissions officer A sitting at their desk is checking out every applicant who comes across their desk. But the point is that you never know if it's going to be you that they're looking at. Obviously, at large schools, nobody has the time to check all of these kids that apply when you've got 50,000 or 60,000 applications. But there are reasons that we found that admissions officers will search for applicants online. 63% of them say they search when they're alerted by an outside source to look at an applicant's online profiles. And that's something that we now call admissions sabotage, which we didn't see a long time ago. And it's really unfortunate that other people are reporting on applicants saying, hey, check out this person's Twitter profile. But what most of them said is when they get that information, they feel compelled to look. 41% of them say they've looked when there's some sort of troubling disciplinary record that comes in with the applicant's application. A lot of them will look when a student is applying for a scholarship, an honors program, or any other competitive or highly selective program or major. 24% of them say that they look when they question the accomplishments that an applicant lists on their application. 19% say they look when there are issues with academic records. If something just kind of looks funny, they'll take a look online. A lot of them look, frankly, to find reasons to advocate for students for admission. So they're not necessarily looking for the bad stuff. They're looking for the good stuff, so that when they go into committee, they have something else to say about this student that they're advocating for. I know you've all seen the application, but here, let me tell you something else that you don't know about this student and why they'd be a good fit.
Great.
Lots of them look, again, if they get a recommendation from a counselor, and certainly we know about athletics. Coaches are looking left and right, and coaches are posting all over Twitter about dropping recruits because of single posts.
Now, let me ask you about younger kids, like middle school kids. Are parents using this software to maybe get their kids into private school for high school?
So middle schoolers are using the software. Their parents are also using the software. It's a great tool for parents to be able to monitor their kids without getting too far into their business, so to speak. Anybody who has a teenager knows that the older they get, the more private they become. And so this gives an objective view. It's not the parent judging the social media. It's a way for a parent to say objectively, this has been flagged. I think you ought to take it down, as opposed to the child saying, Mom or Dad, you're just being so judgy. Everybody's posting stuff like this.
Got it.
So it's a great tool for parents of younger kids. And if you can start using it when your kids start using social media, even in the 4th or 5th grade, it just becomes kind of second nature for the family, that once a week or once a month, you just run those social GPAs and see where everybody's standing and make sure you're cleaning it up as you go.
You know what? I think that's a good point, too, because I'm hearing from like a lot of parents who got kids in the 4th, 5th grade, 6th grades in particular. They're kind of freaking out because now the kids are really, enmeshed in using all these different social media sites. And there's this fear of like, should I just block it? What should I do? And it seems like Social U could be a really good project of, let's just run this GPA every week to see what's out there and not really overreact to what we think that's out there.
Well, as parents, we're so scared. We walk around in fear all the time of what could happen to our kids, what might happen to our kids. And so it's a great way for parents to be able to kind of take a breath and let the kid know it's not me judging you. It's this company who can look at your things objectively. And if they're pointing out that this could be a problem, then it's probably going to be a problem and you should take it down, because as every parent knows, mom or dad, according to the kids, knows nothing. Doesn't matter if you've got a PhD in your field, you still know nothing by nature of the fact that you're the parent. So I would say to most parents, any extra tool you can use to help you out, why not?
Now, Julie, I know that your company, you guys have started doing a lot of these, what you call Social U live talks, where you're actually going into the communities, into the schools, and talk about, digital citizenship, online reputation. And I'm just curious, what have you learned from the actual students during these presentations?
I've learned a lot. I speak probably 4 to 5 times a week to student groups and parent groups and community groups. And the biggest thing I think I've learned is that both students and parents need help and support, because we have this generation of digital natives, who are being raised by analog parents. And as analog parents, we often don't fully understand the power of social media and the internet ourselves in terms of how it can affect our kids' future, because we didn't grow up with it. We don't necessarily know how to parent around it. And I also have learned that students and parents are looking for easy to follow information and guidance. They want clear and really easily definable rules. So every time I speak, I always leave my audiences with kind of an easy to follow to-do list when it comes to social media, especially in terms of admissions or employment. And I essentially have like 9 rules that I leave audiences with. The first one is just to be you, be authentic. Let your character shine, but remember that other people are looking at your profiles through a variety of lenses. Rule number 2 is take out the trash. Of course, every student thinks they invented the 4-letter word, but it reflects poorly on character when it's all over the place, and if you can clean it up, all the better for you. I do recommend number 3 to opt out of tags, especially during college admissions season and when you're applying for jobs. So even though you trust your friends, you might not trust them enough to determine your future. So configure those privacy settings in Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to turn off tagging. I also recommend number 4 to practice what I call the 2-second rule, and that's where a student will ask themselves, would I be okay if my parents, my grandparents, a police officer, my coach, my clergy, the college admissions officer of the school I really want to go to saw this? If they can't say yes to all those people, they shouldn't be posting. Number 5, I like to call what's in that red Solo cup. And what I mean by that is don't post pictures of yourself that imply you might be doing something you shouldn't be, because nobody's ever going to call you to say, hey, what was in the red Solo cup? People are going to form opinions about you based on what they see online and through the lenses they're looking. Number 6, live by the golden rule. So don't bully online. Be kind. Number 7, what goes on Instagram stays on Instagram, I like to say. So if you don't want the world to see it, don't post it. Even though you can and should delete when you make a mistake about posting, it doesn't mean it totally goes away. As we've talked about previously, anybody can screenshot it, even if it's out there for 30 seconds, and then they control your data, and you have no control over what happens to it. Number 8, I really like to remind kids that adults are watching. And even though we teach kids not to judge a book by its cover, that's exactly what happens online. And then lastly, I always say, know your social GPA.
That's outstanding, Julie. Where can families find more information about the Social U? What social media sites are you guys on so they can contact you and get more information?
Well, you can certainly find us at www.thesocialu, and that's the letter U.com. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We're on Instagram. We're all over social media. But the website is really the easiest place to find us right now.
Well, that's outstanding. Thank you so much, Julie, for being on the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
Hey, guys, I hope you really enjoyed that podcast with Julie and I talking about the Social U. And make sure you go to her website, thesocialu.com, and make sure you go ahead and get your free social GPA so that you can figure out where you are with your online presence. And that will really help you out a lot when it comes to colleges and getting employment. And once again, always go to iTunes. Make sure that you rate the Digital Parent Podcast and give us your feedback on this episode with Julie. Until the next time.